welcome to Shawnsky's Garage. Today we're going to talk about my newly acquired 1999 Ford Mustang GT. I bought this car for autocross and I intend to run it in F stock, which is typically the sort of catch-all class for V8 powered American cars, Camaros, Mustangs, unless otherwise excluded as far as a model goes. So unless you have a GT350 or a Camaro ZL1 or a 1LE Camaro or a GT500 Mustang, you're going to be pretty much in the F stock class. The range of the class represents every generation of Mustang. My gosh, you could run Javelins, you could run I mentioned Camaros, you could run Pontiacs, you can run Challengers, and so forth. The reason why I chose this car was I'm familiar with the Fox body, and I believe that this car here is essentially no heavier than any Fox body I've ever owned. It weighs, according to the book, 3250, and that is with a cast iron block V8. The brakes represent an improvement over previous Fox bodies. The chassis is a little bit more rigid, otherwise though very adaptable, and it runs the same wheelbase, which is important in terms of maneuverability. When I was considering this car, I looked at later model G6 Mustangs like a V6 or a EcoBoost, and that would run in a G-Stock class, which is a little bit more competitive in my opinion. There you'd be running against BRZ Subarus and FRS Scion or 3086 Toyotas, which are small, nimble, rear-wheel drive 4-cylinders. I decided to stick with the F-Stock class because, well, I'm familiar with the way that these cars handle, and I don't know that the G6 Generation 6 Mustang would be competitive in the G-Stock class given how big they are. This car is still relatively nimble for an autocross, doesn't handle the track like the newer model Mustangs, doesn't have the rigidity, doesn't have the suspension articulation, doesn't have the brakes, but this car does handle autocross, I think, pretty well. And so I figured when I saw this car for sale out of a dealership in Ohio, and it came listed as a one-owner, 37,000-mile car, and so I ended up taking my trailer down there and bringing it back. It's essentially lived up to my expectations, although I have to say the paint looks like it's probably hard to pick up on the camera, but if you look at the paint, it looks like there's watermarks in the paint. It's actually in the clear coat, and I would say that is probably acid rain. This car resided in Pittsburgh, so I mean, in terms of, there you can kind of see how it picks up, and I'm hoping I can get a professional detailer to take that down out of the clear coat. Obviously it would take away clear coat, or I'm just gonna have to live with it. Otherwise, the car checks out essentially immaculate. 37,000 original miles. The wheels are in excellent condition, and overall, the car really shows well. The paint has good gloss, other than that acid rain damage to the clear coat. The car is equipped with a T45 5-speed. It has the 4.6 2V, 2-valve, and of course 99 is the first year for the PI heads, which had an improvement of 35 horsepower over the 98 model year. I actually leased one of these cars back in 1999. I was doing about 500 miles a week for business, and I had an older BMW 5 Series, and I decided to get a little later model car, but still something interesting, rear-wheel drive. And I just remember buying this car, and it struck me as essentially very similar to a 302 with a set of trick flow heads or GT40 heads. It seemed like it just had an extra 1,000 RPM of flexibility, and otherwise virtually just as torquey as a 302 HO. Honestly, it was a much more improved car from my previous experience with stock Fox bodies from the 80s. The car also has twin piston PBR brakes in the front and a single piston disc brakes in the back, which were really the only cars you could get at that time, and with the Fox body was the 1-year 93 SVT Cobra. And the SN95, which was introduced in 94, brought about 4-wheel disc brakes, and in a 99, the improvement in the front disc brakes, as well as the improvement to the 2V. So a 99 to 04 is really a good generation of Fox bodies, technically. If you know, they're all the same. I mean, if you look at this chassis, it's the same as a 79, the original year Fox body, or technically the Fairmont, which came out in 78. McPherson, modified McPherson strut front suspension, 4-bar link rear, unibody, and all the benefits and pitfalls. Benefits would be lightweight, very adaptable, fail-safe handling, ultimately understeer, but also not a lot of suspension travel, crashy ride over bumps. So if a person's used to driving a late model Mustang with independent rear suspension, this car is a rude awakening. But compared to an earlier Fox body like an 89, I would say it's definitely much more improved. So here's the engine of the car. I don't believe the miles or the condition of this engine betrays the miles of the car. I think it's in genuinely good condition. This is a so-called modular iron block 2V 4.6 liter with the PI heads and the plastic intake, which, speaking of, the plastic intakes are known to crack on these, and a master tech, I learned from a master tech on YouTube that if you can take this bracket off, which essentially mounts to the alternator and the plastic intake, and that lessens the tension on the intake and can reduce cracking. Also, removing the underhood insulation can help as well, but they will crack, and it's not a major job. It's pretty straightforward, so if it happens, it happens. The packaging of this engine otherwise is quite nice. Spark plugs, the coil on spark plugs are right on top. Not that you can really see much on this side. See the injectors. There's a coil on right there. There's 2 of them. And center throttle body. Pay no attention to that strut. I'm actually replacing the struts. All in all, I think it's in good condition. I like how the engine, again, I like how it's packaged with the hydraulic brake booster. It gives a lot of room. It's also very short, the way that the engine is has the accessories packaged within the engine versus out in front of it. And it's a smooth running engine. So here we are in the interior of the 99 Mustang. And it's this interesting color. I really like that green, by the way, when it first came out. I remember Car and Driver had a road test, and my friend and mine were Fox body enthusiasts, and this was the first 2V that actually had, you know, something that was comparable to, you know, a GM 350. It actually matched the LT1 out of the Impala SS and the 94 through 96 Camaro, and then I think it was 97, might have been 98. They introduced the LS1 motor, and that was underrated, supposedly at 320 or 310. I don't remember. I'm not a Camaro guy, but the 260 in a Fox body, again, Fox body as far as, you know, the structural, the relative lightweight, was pretty exciting. And my friend bought his first, and I bought that, at least that black one. And he ended up supercharging his, and to good effect. It was a nice car. I think he ran like safely like 8 pounds of boost with a Vortec. So the gentleman who owned this car, again, original owner, 37,000 miles. And turn on the. Oh, I got the battery disconnected. He had ordered every option he could except for traction control, which would be located right here. And so you have this little change holder for tollways when they were 75 cents. And but you can just tell how clean this car is, how well taken care of it was. The driver's seat, really good condition. You know, no tears, no rips. 2 sets of floor mats. I'm not sure why. Headliner's in good condition. The back seat is in good condition, with the split fold rear seats. Really, the way that this car was finished, I thought was an improvement over the Fox bodies. I think the driving position kind of went backwards versus a Fox body. It seems like you sit higher, but for autocrossing, it's really a good driving position. And the sight lines, you know, this is basically where my vision is, and the sight lines are really nice. The G6, the new Mustang, it's like the hood is like a 73 Thunderbird. It just goes on forever, and it's really hard to place that car. And look how low the windows are here. Just really good visibility for corner carving. That was another reason. And again, the car is inferior to a late model, you know, in terms of, oh, you know, you name it, in every which way, except for, I think, you know, adaptability for certain track duties, and mine being at this point autocrossing. Kind of refreshing though. The interior, very simple, very direct control, heating, ventilation, just simple, works. It's got the double din, the old Ford double din premium. It's got the Mach 460 stereo, which, yeah, sounds okay. Doesn't have Bluetooth, of course. It gets spoiled. Cassette player does not work. CD player does work. You got the defogger over here, window switches. It's got a power seat, and those switches are in the front here. And yeah, it's just kind of a simple car. I did have a shifter on order, so it's got the stock kind of floppy, you know, OEM shifter. Clean condition. Taking a look at the Mustang underneath. Well, it's not exactly pristine. I would say the condition is reflective of a 21-year-old car, accurately enough, especially one with 37,000 miles. Catalytic converters, T45, 5-speed. Exhaust hangs low. I dragged on my trailer. You can see the marks. And I think it may be missing a hanger here. I'm not exactly sure. It looks like it's sprung. Yeah, it's sprung essentially from the engine. A lot of tension on there, all the way from the engine. Nothing on the transmission. The Fox bodies always had mounts off of the transmission for the exhaust. This one is all the way back to the rear wheels. I don't like that. It's got a pinion snubber up there. The old 8.8. Looks like it might have had a differential gear oil change. I'll be doing that anyway. I'll have to verify the tag, but it should be a traction lock, 327 gear. Rear disc brakes pads are bad, they're making noise. Changing out the shocks, and the quad shock hangs diagonally up there. Oh, and also putting on a Steeda rear sway bar. In the factory, or it's not factory, F stock autocrossing class, you're allowed to make one sway bar change, and I'm gonna make the rear because that bigger sway bar in the rear should help the front end with traction, or make the rear end a little less loose, or a little more loose, put it that way. Front brakes felt fine, check those out. Struts will be replaced. Tokiko HPs. It has a cross brace on the K-member. That's something that Fox bodies did not have. Nice paint. Little corrosion here by this plug. Very light, not bad though. A little pour 15 on there. Torque boxes are real solid. All original. 37,000 miles, one owner. Ohio car. I don't believe it saw any salt, or if it did, very little, judging by the condition of this. There's another corrosion spot here. 415. And this is a notorious area here for Fox bodies, rusting right in here. They improved the way they protected it, and it looks all nice and solid in there. PBR calipers, twin piston. That was a addition for $99. Brakes are actually pretty good for a 32 50-pound car. Basically, this car is essentially as good as a 96 through 98 SVT Cobra in most ways. Engine doesn't make as much peak power, but it makes more mid-range power. So on autocross course, I honestly think this is a little better setup. Weight is negligible. I believe the wheel sizes are the same, 17 by 7. And I will be running a 200 wear treadwear, 200 treadwear Ultra summer tire for autocrossing. These are the original style VRs. I believe this is probably, with 37,000 miles, probably the second set. I don't think third set, because you can see the wear indicator right there. It is like right on. Otherwise, a good representation of an old Fox body SN95 new edge. A little corrosion there on this side of the torque box. Nothing crazy though. It'll never see salt. Again, in my possession at least. Really don't like this cat back here. Set up with, there's no hanger. Mufflers, for whatever the hell they are, that don't sound bad. But if I were to replace this, I would go with a Flowmaster. Probably a 40 series catback T45. I'm gonna be draining that out. So they say this is better than a T5 by all accounts. It's got a much better reputation. I don't plan on doing anything crazy with this engine, so it should hold up. It's not gonna be dragged and traced. But the clutch is definitely sketchy. It's way off the top of travel. Try to get my foot behind it to release the quadrant, to make it adjust. That did not seem to do anything. So it's, hopefully I can get through this year with it, and then next winter I'll replace it. Yeah. I really like how the modular sits in there. It sits in there really shallow. All the accessories are tight with the engine. Of course, it's wide, but the plugs are up top anyway. I don't plan on doing any exhaust work, so it's really a nice setup for me. Looking forward to it. Back in the saddle. Modular 2V. Great engines, honestly. They just rev quick, good torque. You know, the LS was a better motor all around, but for a 4.6 liter, it is commendable. And this car is not that heavy, 3250. Should be good. The old 99 wheels, 5-star, classic Mustang exhaust. So that's my 99 Mustang. Next time you'll see it, it'll be modified to fit within the rules for factory stock, or F stock, I should say, and struts. Just painted a sway bar over there. Going with the aftermarket sway bar, quad shock, new quad shocks, and struts and shocks all around, Tokiko HPs. And that's something you can get away with, the rules. And treadwear 200 tire. And so once we have that all nailed down and wrapped up, we'll have another video. Thank you, folks. Take care.